Welcome to the Revolution Church podcast.
Let's just try it up, like way up here. Check. Sibyllus. Does it sound clear, Zoe? All right, I've been told that that's better. Yeah, I got to wear like button-up shirts when I do this because of the thing, but I've got another microphone to plug in to use that's not broken, but I could not find it. So there you go. We're just going to stick with this. Fingers crossed. Last talk of the year. So we're going to hit it. Hey, I wanted to say thank you to everybody who gave this year. Really appreciate it. We met our bills and for 11 months out of the 12 months. The first month was a little bit iffy, but we've barely made it, but we've made it, and it's a good thing. So that's a really good thing. And so I want to just thank everybody for your support to keep this going. And 2024 is going to be a look at that. My glasses are steaming because I took a shower, and now I'm like hot, and all my heat's like not escaping out of this crazy bucket hat I've got. This was just like I was trying to be festive. I was like, oh, it's New Year's. I should wear something. I should wear something with color rather than, maybe wear a fun hat. And I didn't have a little pointy hat or any glasses with the year on it, so this is what you get. Yeah, so here we are. Man, the holidays. Woo! Has anybody else just been mercilessly beaten by them? No, it's been good. It's just, gosh, there's a lot of emotions around holidays and family and people and life in general during the holidays. And so, but I had a lot of fun. The kids have made it great. A lot of fun with the kids. So that's been good. Whew. I'm going to try to drink this tea. I think I'm going to take the top off because that little weird thing's odd. Man drinking tea. Usually I do my monologue here, but I don't have much of a monologue for everybody. I'm excited about 2024. I'm excited about jumping into Galatians again. I think we'll do You Are Accepted again following that. And then maybe a Dr. King talk. Maybe we'll look at some of Dr. King's talks. And then kind of go deeper into talking about hell. I really do want to talk about hell and why I don't believe in it next year even more. So, a lot of good stuff coming up. I've been in contact with a lot of the folks who were family to friends and acquaintances and friends, mostly friends of Bishop Carlton Pearson. And luckily, a lot of them are friends of mine from the past. And we've all been chatting and talking and it's been nice to kind of have a little community to connect with. And also have my friend D.E. Paulk back in my life. It's been really great. And we've had some really, really great conversations. And that's nice. I kind of miss the, like back in the day when we were the emergent church, there was kind of a group of folks to chat with and talk with as well. It was always nice. But yeah, it's nice to kind of have this group of folks who were of bishops and pastors and people who were thinking like we're thinking. It's encouragement. So I've got this is really weird because I don't usually like plan like I do plan my talks. I don't usually plan these things. I just show up and just open the Bible to wherever the Spirit leads me. Oh, but we're going to go into Colossians today. No, but last week I was preparing a talk and I hit James, and you know, me and the book of James have a long history, and of times where we disagreed and then we agreed, and I really like that. I've come to really respect that book and like that book, and I think it's there's a reason, because I think part of the hesitation on James was, you know, the faith without works thing, and early in my career, and then the whole thing of like Martin Luther, the reformist, you know, kicking it out. But now I've realized there's a ton I disagree with Martin Luther about, because I took a seminary class when I was in Minnesota on Luther. But there's a lot I really like too. So that's great. That's a great thing about being human. Is and the part of like disagreeing well, which I'm kind of, you notice I've stepped down from last week from argue well from all year. Now I'm going disagree well, because I think disagreeing might have a little less tension in it. Why I've been thinking about that, but the disagree well is what's great about when you disagree well with someone. You don't have to agree with everything that they believe or everything that they think, you know, and you can find a lot of incredible things, and you're really not going to have anybody you agree with 100%. And that's one of the issues I've always had with subscribing to a particular theology, you know, some theology that some guy 2,000 years ago who doesn't know what it's like to live in, you know, or some guy 500 years ago and doesn't realize what life is like today. Anyway, there's a whole lot of that I will get into. I'm rereading Carlton Pearson's book, The Gospel of Inclusion book, and I am reading the normal boring stuff as well. But it's all going to be exciting this year. I'm really excited about this year. But one of the things that stuck out to me about the book of James is something that I've noticed, that very, very rarely can I almost say, oh, I've seen 100% of pastors not follow this text. And that means me. I put myself in there. And so I thought it was interesting, and so I wanted to talk about it, and it's super uncomfortable. And you know me, I love uncomfortable. Man, my button's like almost on the top of my hat, isn't it? I'm gonna have to support my Sleaford mods a little bit lower. This hat's like way huge though, so eBay. I'm always trying to find one in my size, but it's just like extra large, and I love it. So anyway, so it's in James 2 is what we're going to read today. Is the so Zoe called their middle child James because of the book. That's crazy. That's cool. I mean, my dad's name is James, actually. That's his God-given name. But one of the things is, you know, we talked about loving others last week a lot, and disagreeing well, and what does loving others look like is kind of one of the questions for this, is what is loving others? And we all know, like, oh, love your enemies, and love you know, love your neighbor as yourself, and all this stuff. But today we're going to talk about partiality, showing partiality, and the warning against it in James. And so I'm just going to dive right in, because I don't know any other way to get into it. My brothers and sisters, do you with your acts favoritism really believe in the glorious Lord of Jesus Christ? Now, this is the thing. Like, everybody's like, oh, Paul's such a jerk, and Paul's such an asshole, and Paul blah, 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 you know. Everybody gives a Paul like this horrible time. Even like some of the scholars I read, they're like, oh, he was a horrible leader and all this stuff. I'm like, oh, you mean the guy who started the biggest religion in the world was a horrible leader? Oh, yeah, okay. But James is pretty harsh. James is like, James is like kind of, he only gets one book, so I guess people leave him alone a little bit. But he can be pretty harsh. Some people, anyway, let's just get into it. But he's going, he's like, hey guys, do you really think that your favoritism shows that you believe in God? I mean, like you're showing favoritism to certain people, and, do you really believe in Jesus? And going like, wait, what are you saying? Like, certain people I like a little bit more than other people. Yeah, James, it's how it goes. But he goes, for if a person with gold rings, and fine clothes comes into your assembly, and if a poor person in your dirty clothes also comes in, and if you take notice of the one wearing the fine clothes and say, have a seat here, please, while to the one who is poor, you say, stand over there, or sit at my feet, which would be really weird. Why don't you sit at my feet? The rich guy's going to just stand. Of course, this is 2,000 years ago, so they weren't really dealing with a whole lot of chairs, I'm guessing. Jesus was gone. They had to find new carpenters. It was a tough time. And if you notice, to one wearing fine clothes, have you not made a distinction among yourself and become a judge with evil thoughts? Now see, look at this. James is not mincing words here, folks. Listen, I may be beloved brother and sisters. Has not God chosen the poor in this world to be rich in faith and to be hearers of the kingdom? And he has promised those who love him. Now, I want to look at this, just the beginning part here for a second, because why I said, well, I don't know a lot of pastors that follow this. And I think I put in my notes, pastors and politicians, and then I also just put people who run nonprofits. So, oh, here we go. So when I say almost every preacher, pastor, or speaker, or nonprofit person I've ever met shows partiality to rich people, there is a reason for that. And the reason is when you run a nonprofit, you have to raise funds to get your vision out there and to speak, and you don't have like Pepsi, Premier, Bud Light, Premier's Revolution, Diet Coke. So you've got this crushing thing. And to be honest, like I will tell you, a lot of rich and successful people, not everybody I've ever met, but a lot of rich and successful people have high expectations to be treated well, or at least professionally with respect. And, but honestly, that should be for everyone, and when I've sat, it's just so funny when you sit in a room with pastors, with a wealthy person, because sometimes wealthy people will put together events and things like that, and they'll be like, we're going to put on this event, and we're going to have you all out. We want to talk to you. What are you guys thinking about the future? And everybody's just like, on their best behavior, looking good. The guy's jokes, or the gal's jokes. you, this guy. It gets really like brown nosy. And I have sometimes been the odd man out in that situation because I grew up seeing it happen so much. Like I saw it with my dad. I saw, famous people and oh yeah, they're over at our house for dinner. Now, at that same token, I can also say that I've seen my dad bring homeless people home and have dinner and things like that as well. But I'm just saying, like, I've seen a lot of favoritism shown towards wealthy people. When I've spoken to different people about the project that we're doing, the documentary we're working on, and you speak to famous people, or when I talk to people like making the Eyes of Tammy Faye film, and things like that, and and you do notice that you kind of automatically change into someone else, because you're almost like, there's the intimidation factor, there's the, maybe they could really help what we're doing, and this kind of thing. And James is just saying, like, this isn't it. This is not the way to do it. But James, listen, we bust in like, 150 poor folks. We bust them in, but are they coming to dinner with you? Are they sitting at the front? Are they sitting on, I mean, it's like, these are tough questions to look at. These are hard convictions to follow. And a lot of it's the same reason why you would see politicians do the same, because they're thinking, well, they could help us get voted and they can make the change we need to make with their money, and then I can be like, wear a little button that was like, capitalism sucks, and then just quietly take it off when the big donors come around. No, I've never done that. But what I'm saying is there's always a contradiction there. And I think you can do it the opposite way as well, though. I think you can be hurt and out of your own pain and look at anybody who's, and I've noticed I've done this as well too, is where I've spoken truth to power, and sometimes it's been truth without a lot of grace or a lot of love, and I believe that's also a mistake. I think it's also a mistake, and I've done it recently. That's that's one of the real kickers, is I've done it recently. Been like, said some things like, you're no different than this corporation or that, and had these arguments with people before. And so I think the question here is are we loving people equally, and are we, loving people not for what we can get from them, but how we can love them better, and how we can encourage them and help them like we would anybody else, the Bible talks about, it's like a lot, and it says like, oh, of course you're going to loan money to someone who can repay you, of course you're going to love someone who's good to you, of course you're going to do that. But what about people who, don't, are, and saying that this is what's going to separate us Christians from the rest of the world, is our love for others. And it's just wild to me that I've seen it in almost every church, every denomination, everything I've seen, with these people, where we're all worried about our budget. We're all worried about it. And so sometimes people who can help us, and it's almost manipulative. And I hate saying all this stuff. I hate saying it. I hate talking about it, because I hate it, because I see it sometimes in my own self, and we all do this. And yeah, I mean, Kelly just said it's hard to start a nonprofit without rich people. It's almost impossible, But now I've chased most of them away, and we're still making it. Because also what I've realized is a lot of the times, like when I said, and I went and met with my board of directors, and then I said, I think it's okay to be gay. And I got really quiet. And there was almost an even split with the board. And here's a group of folks that just could decide if I'm even a part of what I started anymore. And so, and one of my board members just says, if you go this route, all the money's gone. Now, he wasn't the one giving me the money, but he was connected to the money that was being given to Revolution yearly. And we were getting a grant, a very generous grant. And so I don't know if it's just my unconscious desire to suffer, or if it's my earnest love of people and grace that made me say, take them, as I slowly walked away. It was like, what am I doing? You get torn with this thing. So you also have to be transparent and not play to those people. You can't play, like often we don't like politicians because we see how they, promise the rich all this stuff, and then we're all going like, well, what about us? And they're just, they're human. They're trying to, get into office so they can do the things they want to do. I mean, in the United States, if you want to be on the ballot in, I think it might be Tennessee, I'm not sure, but it's one of those, and a lot of the states it's like $20,000 just to apply to be on the ballot. 20 grand. So what I think we have to do is learn to live without the catch. Learn to let people give freely. I mean, I remember one time someone gave money to Revolution, but back then we were under another nonprofit, under Safe House, and they said, "Hey, we want you guys to buy this sound system with us." And I go, "Oh, okay," we put it in the thing, and then I came and go, "Hey, you want the money for the sound system?" Like, "Hey, Jay, we didn't make payroll, so we had to use that money for payroll, so we don't have it right now." And I was like, "What?" But that was for the sound system. And the people who donated were very angry, and I understood, rightfully so. I would probably be angry too, but at the same time, I had to realize that there was a need to carry on the work of this whole church that wasn't just Revolution. It was a lot of, homeless ministry and feeding people and doing these things, and these people needed to get their paycheck so they could continue to do this work. And but unfortunately, there were the strings attached, and so that person said, "No more. We don't want anything to do with this. You're no different than your dad," and that kind of thing. And it was hurtful, and it hurt like crazy. Don't worry, we're going to find some hope in this in a few minutes. James doesn't leave us completely hopeless with this situation. But okay, here they are. Like, I even think about this as I'm walking into Sundance and be like, okay, don't be too reactive one way or the other. Just kind of go in and love people the best you can. You're not going in there to, hey, let me sell you, or let me do, it's just go in and be authentic. Really try to be authentic. But there's always empty promises as well. So you also have to deal with that, like these disappointing. You start to feel like, oh, am I a hustler? Or and I realize like why the prosperity gospel. People are like, oh, the prosperity gospel. What are those people doing? And why these televangelists were so big into prosperity gospel is because that was their way to raise money by being like, hey, if you help us, God's going to help you 7 times 7, and you're going to be rich and your barns are going to be running over. I mean, they did that because they decided to go into television without commercials, and so they have to pay for all the television, they have to pay for all this stuff. And then my dad, I looked at him and he had to build all these buildings. And so you start to compromise things because you have to create this monster, and then people get angry about it. Nowadays, we have all these folks who have podcasts and things and raise fund. I mean, everybody's become a televangelist now. Everybody's kind of like, hey, and if you like the podcast, donate, So it's like we're just 1 in a million of these people. But it's hard not to show partiality. But I've seen it across the board that it's something that we do a lot. We do a lot, and we do it for a lot of reasons. And I guess my question is like, I think a really great example of when this was interesting for me is when the reverse thing happened, and this was from being genuine. And so here I want to share this with you. Is when one of my board members who came on, and his name was Stu Damron, such a good guy, didn't agree with all the stuff I said, but he said, I want to support you. I want Revolution to be a church. I want it to be a nonprofit. You guys can have offices in my building. You have a desk across from mine. We can have all the meetings there. We can do all this stuff. We can ship stuff out from there. We can do it all. I'm going to help you. And he could see me just being like, I don't know, because we weren't, he was type A. I'm like this really passive guy. And he loved me unconditionally and made it work and helped Revolution out quite a bit. And I'll always be grateful for Stu's love. And he taught me that it was okay for us to disagree. It was okay for us to argue, and that, I might be holding on to it, but he wanted to always let me know that he wasn't holding on to the argument, And so we had those discussions. So there was times where I was blessed in my own, and Revolution was blessed by someone who just said, a wealthy person who said, I believe in you, and I'm going to show you favor because I want to see you grow and do that kind of things. And so it was very organic. But that doesn't always happen. One of the things also with this type of thought that James is saying, and I think it's okay to disagree with James on some of this stuff if you want to. Like, I'm not gonna pressure anybody to become a saint tomorrow. I think we can disagree with James a bit on this, but it's just it's one of those things where you can often get labeled a troublemaker as well. And I think James would have been labeled this by probably wealthy people in his community, because a lot of those times those are the business people, they're professional people, they've worked really hard to get where they're at. It might be fair, it might be unfair, whatever. You don't always know, and it's not really our place to like always judge these folks. But you will sometimes get labeled as a troublemaker if you do, if you hold yourself the same way with those folks as that you do with people who can't help you, because they've been so used to people trying to get things from them and treating them a certain way that there's a level of respect there that sometimes goes beyond just normal respect, normal conversation, normal interaction. And so that can be tough as well. And you can often be, labeled a troublemaker because you're being human. And I've seen that in so many different industries. And why the time, you're just hoping that maybe you'll get some, the rich maybe give you a few crumbs from the table, or pay for your whole budget. I mean, it's just like this thing, oh, you don't know. It's like playing the lottery. Yesterday, I was in line at the store, and this old man in front of me bought a lottery ticket, and I realized the lottery was $750 million. So I bought a lottery ticket. My son was just like out of his mind. He's like, "You bought a lottery? I can't believe you bought a lottery ticket. Oh my gosh, lottery ticket." This morning he's like, "Did you check the lottery?" We did not win. We did not win. But we tried. So then I could have been on the other end of that. And everybody, "Oh, Jay." No, don't treat me any better. I just have my pants sewn on one stitch at a time. So what do we do with this when we see that there's something that's happening in the church and something that happens in our communities, basically out of a desire? And I'm not even talking about greed. I mean, it's wild what you'll do when you're in need. And I really work hard to hold myself honest to this, but honestly, I can say, like, had I not been raised in the family I was raised in, had I not seen it firsthand, I don't think I would maybe think the way I do about this. I don't think this verse would have been like shot out to me. It might have been more of like, oh, it's kind of a conviction. It is a conviction still, but like I was raised in a way that allowed me to go like, I can't, to follow my convictions when it comes to money, to be very weary of money, to be very afraid of greed. And not just in the fact of financial, but even fame and things like that. It's the stuff that really entices you to be like, it really makes you want to like, oh, well, how about, all these book deals? And if you have a book, it used to be like if you had a book out, you would be like speaking for like a year at least. You'd have all your speaking engagements filled. Everybody was like, oh, you have a book. He's got something to say because there's a book out. So we're, and so you would just be, and there was all that. But I am glad to say, at least I have been a troublemaker this whole time. And I think some people think, well, he's just quirky. He's just strange. He's been through a lot, and it's like, yeah, it's true. I have been through a lot. I've seen a lot. But I can say one of the things my mother always showed me, she always loved and respected people and cared about people. And I don't try to I don't want to make my mom a saint, to be honest with you. She's a saint to a lot of people. And she had her own problems and issues. But with people, most of the comments when I put up something about my mother on Facebook, because that's where you get a lot of comments, the really kind comments are usually from people who like worked at stores. They either worked at like TJ Maxx or Target or Applebee's. Yes, my mother loved Applebee's. How unpopular is that? Applebee's or like Chili's or the fish camp, or, my mom was like me. She would get into this habit of like, okay, we're going to eat there every day for like the next month, and because it was just easy. We just want that something in life has to be easy. So where we go to eat will be easy. But it's usually waiters and waitresses and people who worked in retail who said, I met your mother and she hugged me and she loved me and she talked to me and we had this great conversation. And I think one of the reasons my mom was so good at that, oh, sorry, everybody. One of the reasons my mom was so good at that is because she was raised dirt poor. I mean, she had an outhouse, 7 brothers and sisters that she was the oldest. She had to take care of. I never saw her really treat people differently based on what they could give her or what they couldn't give her. And that was always impressive. Like, she just loved people. And I would love to be more like that, before I become like James or the Raging Against the Machine. But it's hard not to want to be a whore for a big donor. So we can work and keep our jobs and do this stuff and not worry and sleep at night. But I'll tell you one of the things I've learned this year, and this is it's a tough lesson, and it's not easy. I mean, it is tough when you have kids. Like, when I didn't have kids, it was just like, oh, this is an adventure. But when you have kids, when you're near their school and you're doing this, buying groceries for children who eat everything in sight, it gets a little scary. But our finance folks in New York are always like, you're just barely making it. You're keeping your eye just above the just above the water. They're always telling me just above the water, because they deal with all these different companies. And then with ours, they're like, you got to get. I mean, last week when I talked to you, I got an email from one of our accountants saying, you have $14. Don't buy any books. Don't do anything. Don't think anything. You got $14. Now that changed. Money came in. I had another friend be like, you guys, you come over so desperate online for finances. But one of the things I've learned through all the critiques, and I try not to take polls about what people think of my techniques too often, but sometimes it's offered to me freely, is that we've made it this year. There's a donation company, and that makes sure that you're legit. And yesterday, and I won't mention who it was, but yesterday a check for $1,000, and we used to get checks, so it was weird. It came to my house. It says Revolution Church Inc. I was like, oh no, what have we done? And there's $1,000 check in there, and I was like, started writing out a thank you card. And a lot of times I don't, because now people give online, it's harder to like reach out to them. I'm trying to get everybody's emails so I can start doing just individual little emails. I like to write things out because I'm dyslexic, so emailing, I don't know, it's hard for me for some reason. But the point is that it has been provided. We've made it through, and to be grateful, and so grateful, and to learn to have gratitude, to say, hey, there's so many people who aren't being able to follow their vision, aren't being able to do their work full time. And I'm going to be this January looking at other part-time jobs, and that's fine. But the point is that you kind of get a blessing from that as well. And knowing like, hey, I've got a small community of people who are doing their best to keep like, we're important, we're valued. This work is being cherished. I've seen this work change people. I've seen people who don't even really attend these talks or listen to these talks that often say, well, I heard a clip where you were talking about disagreeing well, or showing more grace, or not being so angry at our critics, and it really affected the way I do my work. And I'm going like, those are the type of things that you've got to learn to be grateful for, and just making it. You can learn to be grateful for just making it, and that's where I'm at. I'm just making it. I went out and spoke at Carlton's memorial, and DE's church paid for it to come out, and then they gave me a little money when I left, and it was like, it was a blessing because every little need got met, and I'm not this like super spiritual guru guy, you know what I mean? I'm not just like, oh, God is, my mom would always be like, God will provide, and I have to say, like, I've spent a lot of my time, oh, Reverend John Scott, good to see you, buddy. A lot of my time, was spent worrying, and but we still, it's almost like it's I found it to be a waste of time. Now, I say all that to say that you've got to learn to live in gratitude and be grateful for the people who stick with you and stay with you and believe in the vision and go with you. And so, but it's always going to be hard not to show partiality to rich people in fine clothing. And especially if you are a preacher or a public a preacher or I almost said Republican, which I didn't mean to say. Republican, because those Democrats, they don't want any money. Just kidding. Or if you're a politician, or if you're any kind of nonprofit group, or probably anybody who's running trying to make a full-time life out of podcasting too. It's hard not to be like, let me entertain you. Let me show you around town, when most people, I'm like, oh, I'm glad you're in my neighborhood. See you later. So let's get a little bit into this one more time. Here we are in James 5. Listen, my beloved brothers and sisters, has not God chosen the poor in the world to be rich in faith? Yes. And to be heirs of the kingdom that he has promised to those who love him. But you have dishonored the poor. Is it not the rich who oppress you? Is it not they who drag you into court? Is it not they who blaspheme the excellent name that we invoked over you? And so James has obviously got some personal dig going in there as well. But he's being honest. He's saying it changes us. We become different people. We are not our genuine selves. Something happens in the unconscious. It's almost like this insecurity, and there's an offer for being secure. And so what you're learning is, and I think I just saw Kelly's statement down here as well on Facebook for those who are just listening online and can't see this, but you do learn to, for a long time, I really had to learn to be like, when people said, hey, I want to get your meal when I was in a time of need doing ministry, to say thank you rather than no, because they'd be like, okay. So I had to realize that I was like, thank you so much. That really helps. Or really appreciate that, And I had to learn to live a life of transparent gratitude as well. So you have to learn to be this transparent human being that lives in a life of transparent gratitude. And you almost have to learn to not have to live in this dance. Wouldn't it be refreshing if you could just go to someone and say, hey, listen, I know you've got money, blah, blah, blah. This is what we're doing. This is the church. If you're interested, great. If that's not what you want, great. But we really could use your support. And then from on, just carry on. Rather than feeling like you have to do the dance. You do well if you really fulfill the royal law. I love it, the royal law. According to the scripture, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. But if you show partiality, you commit a sin and are convicted by the laws as a transgressor. Now he's going to get into saying, like, if we don't follow the whole law, we're not going to follow any of the law. And Paul does it in a much clearer way, and I'm glad that he does. So I think that's the question we have to ask is, where's our partiality coming from? Where is the insecurity coming? Do we have faith? Do we have hope? And because faith is just like evidence in things not seen. And so it's bizarre. It's ridiculous, right? Like, I'm going to follow this God, and I'm going to say, this is the God I've decided to follow, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm not following God because I'm afraid of hell, because I don't believe in hell. So I'm just going to follow this God to love people. And there's a lot of people who follow no God and don't believe in any God who do it way better than me. But this is what I want to do for my life, is I want to help encourage people to love each other better, disagree better, and do these things. But it's hard not to show partiality. And I think that's one of the things I always loved about punk rock. About punk rock is this ethic for a lot of punk rockers, and not all of them, obviously, but is to do their art and to do their work on their own terms, but also, like, I'm not going to rip off the kids. And I think Ian MacKaye from Fugazi and from Minor Threat, he has really lived that. I mean, they still, most of their stuff happens out of this house in Washington, you know, and I'm sure it's probably cost him a lot of friendship, because I think he could have made a lot more money in his bands and stuff by being like, no, we're only going to charge $15, or we're only going to charge $6 a show and things like that. And we're going to learn to respect each other and treat each other well. And everybody's the same here, you know. And that's not an easy life to lead, but it's a pretty cool punk rock ethic. And as if we can find the grace to do that, and find, again, I will use the word faith, if we can find the faith to do that and ask ourselves, do we have faith? And I think for me, I've spent a lot of years, the past few years, in trying to focus on philosophy and scholarship and things like that. So some of that spirituality, some of that faith, some of that hope has kind of been like, oh, you sit over here. I want to logically think about this. But part of the beauty of my mother was this really bizarre love and trust and faith that she had in God. Now, not to say that she, you know, there probably were situations where she didn't. I'm sure there were. I mean, I know there were. So he goes, you do really well, but if you show partiality, you commit sin and are convicted by the law of transgression. For whoever keeps the whole law but fails in one point has become accountable for all of it. For the one who said, you shall not commit adultery, also said, you shall not murder. Now, if you do not commit adultery, but you murder, you have been a transgressor of the law, so to speak. And so act as those who are to be judged by the law of liberty. For judgment will be without mercy to anyone who has shown no mercy. But then listen to this part. This is where it gets really cool. And remember, you know, for me, this isn't like the no mercy showing isn't like, and then you're going to go into your own personal torture chamber for eternity. You know, it's not this like insane, this like crazy thinking in my mind. But he's saying mercy triumphs over judgment. So this is what we have to remember when we go into these ideas and when we see people doing these things, that we don't sit there as old wise judges, because we never know what we would do if we were in their shoes. Like, my dad had to raise more money than I've ever raised in my life in 2 days to keep Heritage USA going, to keep all the staff paid, to keep all the buildings going, to keep on the TV, to do, I mean, he did 5 shows a week plus the service. My mom did 10 shows a week plus, I mean, they worked their asses off. They really, I mean, my dad could have told you any light bulb that was having trouble or electrical problem that was having any problem anywhere on the property. You know, I mean, he would drive through the, like, OCD and like had a tape recorder, like, oh, there's, you know, Angel Boulevard, there's a light bulb out. And during Christmas, it was really unhealthy for him. He had something about light bulbs, keeping the light shining, not hiding it behind a bushel. But mercy, folks, mercy triumphs over judgment. And that's always been the message that we've taught here. So when we see those folks who are failing at this greatly, is if we are going to speak truth to power, and this is something I need to remember, because I often, the punk rocker in me comes out and I'm like, think I'm John Lydon or Johnny Rotten or whatever you may know him as, and start saying like, you know, and saying all these things. And I need to like remember that mercy is always the trump card here, and to always show mercy to people like this. Like if I go in and say, well, they're angry and preachers are a bunch of greedy bastards and the church is greedy and all they're tax exempt and all this stuff, I am literally falling on deaf ears. You know, they're not listening. They're going, well, you don't understand, or we always need somebody, you know, there's nuances and things like that. And you're right, there are nuances to all this stuff. It's very easy for us to stand in judgment. But even James says, but mercy triumphs, and is the trump card here. So we've got to continue to show mercy to these people. And so that's the thing to keep in mind, is like, this is a tough road to haul. And I think it's one of these things where you go like, this might have to be something I carry as a personal conviction, you know, because if you go into a room full of other people who are trying to raise money from someone, let's say you're in a room full of pastors, and there's a couple rich people there. And you go in there and you go, sinners, how dare you, you know. But I can tell you there's been a lot of times, you know, I can't judge these people's lives. I have to show mercy. I have to also go like, I've walked in these shoes. I've seen it. I've seen the need. I've seen the fear in people's eyes, you know. I know what it's like to think like, if we don't make this, I'm not, you know, I could lose my rent. I could lose my house. I could lose, you know, I understand those thoughts. So this is not an easy one, you know, but why I felt the need to speak about this, because it made me so uncomfortable. And I feel like anything that makes me as uncomfortable as reading this and then going like, oh, I've seen that a million times, I should probably just say it out loud and get it out there and get us thinking. And you'll love it, because I'm sure at the end of this talk, I'm going to remind you where you can donate. So don't worry, you know. You know, it's hard when you need to fund the project. And I don't think, like, for a lot of these people, it's like I said again, it's not a greed issue. It's just meeting needs. It's just doing your work. It's trying to be successful at what you do and doing it in the right way. Because I really think if maybe greed is something from people on a different financial level that they really have to struggle with. I think we can be greedy in different areas of our lives. But it's not, you know, it's not easy. Let me finish this, because I think this finishes in a really beautiful way, and I think it kind of sums up what we're talking about here. So after that part where it says mercy triumphs over judgment, which we all have got to remember. I mean, I think those are the type of things we also forget, you know, is when we read these verses about judgment, you know, sometimes we cherry pick the harshness over the realizing like, but grace is a fact, you know, but you're all set free from, you know, we forget some of the beautiful verses of mercy triumphs over judgment. But it's good to keep these things in your mind and in your heart. And I think this is the interesting follow-up to this. And we're not even going to go through the whole thing. I'm just going to read like 14 through 17. What good is it, my brothers and sisters, if you say you have faith but do not have works? Can faith save you? Now listen to this. And this is also puts into perspective what the word save means. People hear salvation when they hear save, or they think, oh, it means saving me from the burning pits of hell. But that's not necessarily what the word saved is used. Sometimes, like with Paul and people like when he's saying saved, he's often literally saying saved from those who are persecuting us here on earth, saved from those people who want to feed us to the animals in the stadiums, or want to burn us on poles, or want to crucify us. Like being saved from those who are after us to destroy us. So you've got to listen to this, because he goes, can faith alone save you? So we have made this, our whole world, about, my whole growing up, this was going to be about salvation. Like, oh, faith alone doesn't work, so I got to do these good works, and I got to make God happy, and so I must have to build, like, so for years, even when I was doing Revolution at our most successful moments, I was thinking bigger, bigger, bigger. And that's what my dad did, because you think, I got to save all these people from hell, I got to create this great thing, I got to do all this stuff, and you get into this feeding this monster type of thing, and compromising, because you're going like, oh, I can't do both of these things. It just doesn't work that way. James, this is the reality. But listen to what he follows up to when he says, can faith save you? What is the story he says? Right here he goes, if a brother or sister is naked and lack of daily food, and one of you says to them, go in peace, keep warm, and eat your fill, and you do not supply their body's needs, what is the good of that? So faith by itself, it has no works, is dead. And when he says it's dead, he's saying you're not saving that person from poverty. You're not helping that person from starving to death. You're not doing anything. Your faith is completely dead to them. You are not loving your neighbor. You're not loving the least of these. So you have an opportunity, and we don't all have these opportunities. I'll say that. There's times when we have to pass people and we're like, yeah, I'm in it too, you know. I put my groceries on a credit card. That kind of thing. But he's saying, like, can faith save you? Do you see what I'm saying? Can I get a amen? What he's saying is your faith is dead if you don't help others. And what he's saying is you're not saving anyone from suffering. You're not saving anybody from weeping and gnashing of teeth. You want to talk about weeping and gnashing of teeth? Look at the people who, like, there was an encampment down here, and I was seeing all these people who had this encampment. And of course, as soon as the holidays came, Happy Christmas, all the encampment was taken out. It was gone. And I can tell you from the look, a lot of these folks, they have done a lot of weeping and a lot of gnashing of teeth and a lot of brokenness. And instead of saying, what can we do to help these folks? We go, I don't really like seeing all those encampments near my, kids' school, or, when I come out of Starbucks, I don't feel great about spending $6 on this coffee and having to see all these poor people, I mean, beyond poor, they don't have anything, So instead of saying, like, well, what can we do to go over there? We go, oh, take care of yourself, eat well, stay off the, stay off the heroin, don't steal anything. We're not doing anything. We're dead. We're dead. Our faith is dead to those people as I have walked by them. My faith was not, like, I could have been anything. I could have been a billionaire. I could have been a poor person. But anything I did was not being, my faith was not saving anyone from weeping and gnashing of teeth. My faith was not saving anyone from suffering poverty. My faith, so because I live in a country where, like, you get insurance, and if you don't have a lot of money and you get, like, I got insurance, and this time I got the really good Obamacare insurance and the Affordable Care Act insurance. And then they made it clear, like, hey, listen, if you go to the hospital outside of Washington, you aren't covered. So if you're in a car accident anywhere else, your life is over as you know it financially. So we all have to live in this kind of fear, and we see people struggling that. And so when we see people who are, like, putting up GoFundMes because they need surgery, or they have to have, something fixed, or, these are, I think, our moments of what is our faith doing here. It's a practical answer to these questions. It's not, well, we saved them from hell, so one day they'll be in heaven, and this will be nothing. No, that's not what the Bible is talking about. It's not talking about life after death. It's talking about life before death. So when we see people suffer, and this is even when we see people being put down, when we see, like, why did I become gay affirming? Because I saw my brothers and sisters who are LGBTQ being treated like second-class citizens. They couldn't get married, they couldn't have insurance, they couldn't have rights, they couldn't share home stuff, they couldn't do this, they couldn't get the break. I mean, they just were second-class citizens in this country. And that's why you stand up, that's why you say something. You see someone saying, hey, they're not getting the benefits, they're suffering because you don't think they're worthy. And so you have to speak up. This is salvation. This is truth coming forward. This is a hand saving someone out of the gutter, saving another life. Or you see someone's career being wrecked by lies and untruths. You have to speak up, because that's your salvation in action. That's you help saving other people. That's picking up your cross. Does it make sense now? You're picking up your cross. Pick up your cross daily. Well, why should I have to pick up a cross? Didn't Jesus take care of it? Yeah, but your faith is saying you're here to save people who are here. You are here to love your neighbor as yourself. If you were in that situation, what would you do? So that's what it's asking us. And that's what it's saying to us. And that's really hard stuff. And that would, to see that and to practice that and to remember, to go back to the part where he goes, mercy is greater than judgment, because it's what I find is not working for these folks who may be well off and are ignoring issues, or maybe not doing the things that they could do, is not that people aren't saying things to them like, you could do more, you could do so much more, F this guy and screw that. And I do it all the time, I mean, I post things all, look at this, blah, blah, blah. They're, you could be feeling, I do it sometimes, and I'll probably continue to do it. But we've also got to show mercy to these folks. That's why we've got to disagree well. You can't disagree well if you don't know someone. If I just go up and be like, well, you're a piece of shit, they're not going to want to, I don't want to hang out with somebody who says that to me. You know, I don't want to come up with someone who makes a complete judgment call based on my life, on my belief. I mean, I have it happen. And when people are like, oh, I used to believe what you believe, and I don't believe in that crap anymore. It's horrible. How could you believe that? I'm like, well, do you know what I believe? You know, and that's the same with judging anyone. And so there becomes a lot of nuances. There comes a lot of complications. There comes a lot of, oh, what will they think of me? What will they say? But I think what James has said to us is that if we have the opportunity to help others, we should help others. And the great thing about this is he's not just saying it to us folks who are maybe struggling to get by financially and working on that, but he's also saying it to the wealthy folks. Hey, if you see this and you think this is really doing good to help people and you can make it happen rather than not happen, then you should step in and help save this and help save them and help save this project and keep it going. You know, so they don't have to go and put you at the front of the church, or, you know, a special dinner with the pastor, or, you know, fly out to their mansions or whatever. You know, I'm not saying, like, you know, if someone offers to fly me out to their mansion tomorrow, you'll probably, I'm on a plane. But so give me mercy, but also realize, like, you know, these are the things that we have to, you know, these are the struggles, these are the things, and we're going to have to, you know, but note that, hey, I've heard Jay say this, so I think what, you know, what the attitude he's going with is probably a little bit different than what someone else would say or someone else would do. And I've never been an ear tickler. I've been accused of being an ear tickler my whole life, you know, and I don't feel like it's ever really worked that well for what they say is, I'm like, I'm tickling ears. I have a lot less ears around when I tickle them. Maybe these ears don't like to be tickled. Anyway, so there you go. There is the weirdest, strangest, toughest talk I've ever done on James. And it hit home. I hope it hit all of us well. And I hope we're able to kind of wrestle with that and look at it and make sense of it. It's wild when you take out some of, like, the magical thinking that we were raised with and some of the supernatural stuff, and you kind of let it, you know, kind of let's just take that back a little bit. And oh, maybe we would all be helping each other a lot more if we didn't think this was about a destination to hell. Maybe we'd be helping all of it, you know, if we didn't think, you know. And then the fact is, do we really believe in those things? Because we're not really doing it anyway. But maybe there's a difference of how we love people, and we will love people in a very different, unique way when we can and when we have the ability to do it. And see it when we are taken care of, when we are, you know, if we do get financially blessed or whatever you want to call it, you know, or you know, that we see that not as just an opportunity to get bigger things, but maybe it's an opportunity to stay where we are and help others who've been in similar places. And that's where empathy becomes very powerful, and that love that never gives up, never loses faith, always hopeful, endures through every circumstance. That's where that really becomes powerful, when you really, I'm going to love my neighbors as myself. You know, I know what I need and I know what I don't need. So and for those folks who don't have that, I'm going to try to show them mercy. Even though I might be judging, I'm going to have to remember that mercy triumphs judgment. So there you go, folks. Thanks for tuning in. If you want to help support the work, go to revolutionchurch.com, and there's a, what is it, PayPal, and there's two of them, Venmo. I think it's PayPal and Venmo. That really helps. Keep this thing going. And I'm really trying to aim big next year. And I think this is a good talk to have this, because it's so humbling as well. And so it makes you feel very raw when you say it. It's like, I would like to try to raise, like, double the church's income next year, so it's not constantly like this frantic worrying thing. And so I could be a good dad and responsible for not just, you know, myself, but for my kids, and kind of do that kind of thing. And so I'm going to try to do that. And if we do it, more is going to happen. I'm not even going to shoot a vision right now, because I don't want to shoot a vision that's going to be empty. What I know is that when God provides, when you folks provide, when people take place, when this continues, if this continues to grow, then we will grow in a way that is effective and that touch people's lives and that helps more people learn to disagree well and show each other grace and realize they are accepted by something greater than themselves, and they don't have to name it, they don't have to say what it is, but that they are accepted and they are loved, and to make this world a little bit less of a hell for people. So I don't want to stop hell on earth. You know, life before death is what I'm focusing on right now. So I hope that resonates with you and resonates with others. Thanks, everybody. I've been waiting to do this so long. I will see you all. I will see you all next year. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed this podcast. To make your 100% tax-deductible donation today, please visit revolutionchurch.com/donate. You can also learn more by clicking the donate section on the website.